I've been doing keto since 2013. I'm considered a world leader on the topic of ketosis. I've lectured on stages all across the world, and I've taken over 5,000 students through a keto protocol. In this lesson, I'm going to share with you the 7 keto mistakes that I wish I could undo so you can learn these mistakes so you don't have to make the same mistakes and get amazing results when you do keto the right way. Back in 2013, when I started implementing keto, I was doing workshops on keto and it wasn't popular. People really didn't know what it was. Now keto is trending. It's one of the top search terms on Dr. Google, but unfortunately, most people who do keto do it the wrong way and actually create more inflammation. So let's start with the first mistake. That's going to be thinking that keto is a high-fat diet. You know, what I discovered is that keto is not even a diet. It's a metabolic process. There is nothing new about keto. It's just nuanced or maybe new to some people, but in reality, this process of ketosis has been around for as long as humans have existed. That is correct. Your ancestors all did keto. And when babies are born into this world and breastfed, babies are in a state of ketosis because breast milk has saturated fat and cholesterol, which helps that baby go in a state of ketosis, which helps the neurological development of that baby's brain, which at that time of life is very important. When most people look for ways to follow a keto diet, they're gonna come across a chart that shows 75% fat, 15% protein, and maybe 5% carbohydrates. And that is one way to do keto. Keto can be a high-fat diet, but I'm going to make the case that it should not be a high-fat diet. If you have weight to lose, then we should not be eating high fat. Instead, what I learned is we should actually get into ketosis and dial down the fat and allow your body to burn its own body fat for fuel, because essentially you have two options. You could get your fat calories from your keto foods in front of you, or you could get it from your body fat, your hips, your love handles, your thighs, the visceral fat. When you dial down the fat and focus on protein, which we'll talk more about later, you tap into body fat for energy faster. So what keto does have in common is it needs to be a low carbohydrate approach, a low carbohydrate diet, but that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a high-fat diet. If you're looking to lose weight on keto, you'll get faster results eating moderate fat versus high fat, focusing on protein. And in general, most people need to keep their total carbohydrates under 50 grams per day to enter and stay in a state of ketosis. The second mistake I wish I could undo is not supporting the liver. Your liver is what I call the soccer mom organ. And I say that with all respect to soccer moms who do so many different things for their family. The liver does so many different things for the human body. This 4.5-pound organ that sits right here on the right side of your rib cage is responsible for fat loss, detoxification, but in this case, for keto, breaking down the fats you're eating on keto. Your liver produces a substance called bile, B-I-L-E. This is a green substance I want you to think of as a detergent to break down fat. And those fats you're eating on keto, getting through nutrition, are vital for your metabolism. Vitamins A, D, E, and K are all used by your cells to increase energy production so you feel energized, which raises your basal metabolic rate so you burn more calories and fat, and you feel really good. Most people, I learned this the hard way, have a sluggish liver. Their liver has been beat up throughout the years from consuming high fructose corn syrup, drinking alcohol, environmental toxins, and taking different medications. And what ends up happening is when your liver is sluggish, you start to produce thick bile, and then you have difficulty breaking down the fat. This is actually the #1 reason why people struggle on keto. They get loose stools and diarrhea because they can't break down the fat. So supporting the liver is key for that liver to produce thin, healthy bile to break down the fat, absorb those fat-soluble vitamins, detoxify the body, and of course, help with fat loss and energy production. So what do you do here? What's the solution? How do you support this soccer mom liver? Bitters. Bitter for the liver. The first thing I have all of my Keto Camp Academy students do right when they start keto is to incorporate bitters to support the liver. These are going to be foods, and I want you to write these down, that are bitter tasting that stimulate the liver to thin bile and produce bile, which therefore breaks down fat and you feel great, you produce energy and burn fat. So these are going to be apple cider vinegar, terrific bitter and also great for glucose. Have 2 tablespoons before a keto meal. Artichokes, dandelion greens, arugula, lemons and limes. One of the things I tell my students to do is squeeze lemons and limes on their keto proteins. Coffee is also a bitter. Just make sure it's organic, shade-grown, pesticide-free. The one I use and recommend is Purity Coffee over at KetoCampCoffee.com. Use the coupon code KetoCamp for a nice discount. Then we have seasonings such as rosemary, thyme, and basil. You want to season your foods with those seasonings. Just smelling those seasonings actually stimulate bile production in the liver. And then of course we have ginger tea, and milk thistle tea. Any of those bitters will do. Consume them every single day, stimulate healthy bile, and break down fat. Now some people, for example, those who don't have a gallbladder or those whose liver are just fatty and really difficult breaking down fat, you might want to supplement with a digestive enzyme that contains ox bile, and I'll put a link for the one I recommend in the notes down below. And the third mistake people make on keto, especially keto beginners, is not replenishing their electrolytes efficiently. What happens is this. When we are not doing keto, the average American is consuming over 300 grams of carbohydrates per day, and they're eating pretty much every 2 to 3 hours. What's going to happen when you do that is high glucose and insulin spikes, store fat, inflammation goes up, and when you transition to keto and start to drop your carbs under 50 grams per day, you dramatically lower your glucose and insulin and inflammation levels. This is really important, and what happens is you start to shed a lot of excess water weight. So right off the bat, day one, you're going to feel lighter, feel less puffy, look less puffy, but the kidneys, as they shed the excess water weight, also shed electrolytes, sodium, magnesium, potassium during this process. It's similar to what's called diuresis, where you're losing these key electrolytes. When this happens too steep and too frequently, you start to feel off on keto. You start to get maybe a headache, you feel fatigued, you might feel sick. Some people call this the keto flu, but it's not necessarily a keto issue. It's really electrolyte withdrawal and sugar withdrawal symptoms. So the important thing to do is start in day one, or even if you're a few days or a few weeks into keto, increase your electrolytes. Get your magnesium, your sodium, potassium. Incorporate high quality salts in your coffee or tea, on your food. Take a high quality electrolyte supplement. I formulated a recipe for my Keto Camp Academy students called the Keto Camp Cocktail, and you could simply drink this every morning to replenish your electrolytes. And how you make it is very simple. It's 2 cups, so 16 ounces of spring water, 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, 1 teaspoon of cream of tartar for the additional potassium, and a couple pinches of high quality salt like Redmond's real salt. You mix it all together, drink it in the morning, and you have replenished your electrolytes. So don't pass on this part. Make sure you're keeping those electrolytes up, especially for those who are active and doing keto. The fourth mistake that I've made is eating the wrong fats on keto. Just because a fat is keto friendly does not make it health friendly. It's not necessarily the same thing. If something is keto friendly, it's not necessarily health friendly. And unfortunately, most people eat really bad, inflammatory, rancid fats on keto, which create inflammation, create weight gain, and they say keto doesn't work for me, I felt inflamed, I actually gained weight. And this is a big reason why. There are 3 main types of fats out there, actually 4. We have saturated fats, we have monounsaturated fats, polyunsaturated fats, and trans fats. When we look at cellular metabolism, how your metabolism functions at a cellular level, we can understand that the saturated fats and the monounsaturated fats are really key and vital for energy production and fat loss. They're essentially the building blocks of your cells. But these polyunsaturated fats and trans fats are highly inflammatory. They end up creating inflammation around your cells, blocking your fat burning hormones, creating weight loss resistance, creating brain fog and disease. Some other names for polyunsaturated fats are vegetable oils or seed oils or PUFAs, which are short for polyunsaturated fats, or linoleic acid. These are all the same classifications here. And these are so inflammatory that I remember when I interviewed a world leader on nutrition and health, Dr. 𝙎𝙬𝘎𝘾, medical doctor, who was actually Kobe Bryant's nutritionist for the Los Angeles Lakers, and she's a dear friend of mine. I've had her on my Metabolic Freedom podcast several times. Make sure you're subscribed to the Metabolic Freedom podcast. I asked her this question. I said, Dr. 𝙎𝙬𝘎𝘾, which scenario out of these three scenarios will lead to disease faster? Cancer, heart disease, obesity, chronic disease. Which is the worst out of these three scenarios? Scenario number one, smoking cigarettes every single day. Scenario number two, eating processed sugar every single day. Or scenario number three, eating vegetable oils every single day. She giggled and said, Ben, that's an easy question. It is hands down the vegetable oils. She said, look, smoking is not good for you, but once you finish the last puff, you've done your damage. Eating processed sugar, obviously not good for you, but there's some things you can do to mitigate that glucose spike by exercising, going for a walk, but after a few hours, that glucose spike will go back to where it was. But these vegetable oils stick around in your body for a very long time. The half-life is estimated to be 680 days, meaning if you stopped eating these bad fats today, and I'll give you a whole list in a minute, 680 days later, 2 years later, half of them will remain in your body fat, creating inflammation. That's how dangerous they are. And Dr. Martin Grutfeld had an incredible, alarming study that was recently published on French fries that were fried in vegetable oils. And they looked at the aldehyde producing content. Aldehydes are carcinogenic, cancer causing. The more aldehydes, the more you risk of cancer development. And it showed that 5-ounce serving of French fries cooked in vegetable oils created the same amount of aldehydes from smoking 20 to 25 tobacco cigarettes. Let's put that in perspective here. A 5-ounce serving of French fries is about 20 to 25 French fries. And they're saying that's equivalent to 20 to 25 tobacco cigarettes. So essentially, one French fry, if you eat one French fry fried in vegetable oil, that's equivalent to one tobacco cigarette smoked. Yikes. These vegetable oils are highly inflammatory. They're all over the place. They're in a whole bunch of keto products, but I'm here to tell you they are not healthy. They're the worst things you could have. I'm going to give you a list right now of the ones you want to avoid. We have canola oil, called rapeseed oil in the UK. We have corn oil. We have cottonseed oil. We have sunflower oil, soybean oil, safflower oil, rice bran oil, grapeseed oil, and I would throw in refined peanut oil. Those are the 9 you want to avoid. When I go to restaurants and I'm doing keto, or even when I'm not doing keto, I'm always asking the server, which oils do you use to cook your food in? And they're going to say a vegetable oil. So what I tell them and what I show them is my seed oil allergy card. And I say, I'm allergic, highly allergic to these vegetable oils, and it has a list of the ones you want to avoid. Can you ask the chef to swap over to healthier fats, which I'll give you a list for, but it has the healthier fats. And this is my gift to you, whether you're listening on the podcast or watching this on YouTube. If you head over to seedoilcard.com, you can get this for free. Download it to your phone, show it to the server, or even print it out like I did, and I'll even drop a link for it down below. So those are the bad ones. The good fats on keto that support fat loss, lower inflammation, help you feel incredible are the saturated fats and monounsaturated fats. The reason they're called monounsaturated fats and saturated fats is because when we look at the chemical structure of these fats, for example, the polyunsaturated fats, the word poly means many. So these polyunsaturated fats contain many double bonds. And I don't really expect you to understand the physiology here, but just know this. The more double bonds a fat has that's closely located to each other, the more fragile they are, the more unstable they are, the more aggressively they attract oxygen. And they're using high heat temperatures and detergents and cleaning agents to process these polyunsaturated fats. So they're already rancid and inflammatory before it's even bottled. Then we heat them up even more. And I remember when I was a kid, my mom worked at Kentucky Fried Chicken, and she would bring me home Kentucky Fried Chicken most nights. But some nights she didn't bring me home Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I was an angry little fat kid when she did not bring the Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I would say, Mom, why didn't you bring home chicken tonight? And she said, oh, I only bring the chicken during the first 7 days after the oil has been changed, and they use vegetable oil. She said they use the same vegetable oil for about 14 days, and then that oil turns so black, then they replace it, and then keep frying it over and over and over for 14 days. This is disgusting. Now, the monounsaturated fats, mono means one, so it contains fewer double bonds. It contains one double bond. So these are more stable, less reactive, less fragile. The saturated fats contain 0 double bonds, highly stable, amazing building blocks for the cell membranes, great for your hormones, great for your brain, great for fat loss. So here's a list of the healthy fats that are saturated fats and monounsaturated fats that you want to eat on keto. We have butter and ghee, we have beef tallow, we have duck fat, coconut oil, avocado oil, and olive oil. That simple swap right there will go a long way on your keto journey. The fifth mistake that I made and a lot of people make is that they do not pair keto with intermittent fasting. And there's a right way to do it. First, we do keto for 7 days, then we pair it with fasting. It works so well. When we think about the benefits of keto, it's very similar and parallel to the benefits of fasting. Both keto and fasting lower insulin, lower glucose, lower inflammation, allow you to pull fat from your liver and your organs and tap into body fat. And fasting actually enhances ketone production. And we know that ketones are signaling molecules. When your body is producing ketones, and how this works in a nutshell is when you lower your carbs under 50 grams total per day and increase your healthy fats and protein, then your body is going to lower insulin. When you lower insulin enough to a point, your metabolism makes this metabolic switch, where then you start burning stored energy for fuel. In other words, you start burning stored fat for fuel. Your metabolism starts burning these fatty acids within your cells, your fat cells. Those fatty acids are sent to your liver, that soccer mom organ, and the liver then starts to metabolize the fatty acids and produce ketones. With fasting, this process happens more efficiently. And if you really want to accelerate your results on keto, I think fasting is a game changer. When you practice fasting with keto, it'll double, triple, maybe even quadruple your results. You'll get faster results. So the mistake I see a lot of people make is that they do keto, but they're eating 3 meals a day and snacks in between. And that's much better than the standard American diet, but it's not going to get the results that you want. If you actually practice an intermittent fasting schedule where you have an eating window and a fasting window, you're going to get better results, faster results, and it's going to make this much more enjoyable as well. The sixth mistake I see people make, and I made this mistake myself, is not getting enough protein. I mentioned in the beginning I used to think of keto as a high-fat diet, but it shouldn't be. It doesn't need to be. And in the beginning, the first few years of teaching keto, I used to tell people, be careful with your protein, don't have too much, because you want to have moderate to low protein, because too much protein will create something called gluconeogenesis, which is the creation of glucose, and it will kick you out of ketosis. And then I started testing this on dozens of Keto Camp Academy students, hundreds of Keto Camp Academy students, and I found that it's pretty rare to eat too much protein to kick you out of ketosis. There are always exceptions here, but for most people, this was not happening. And then I found out that the people that were focusing on protein actually felt better. They got more fat loss. They were able to practice fasting because they were more satiated. Protein is arguably the most important macronutrient. It creates thermogenesis, which is the creation of heat after eating the protein. Protein helps to activate hormones in your body and signals such as leptin, cholecystokinin, peptide YY. These are just signaling molecules or chemicals to tell your brain, your stomach, you're full, you're satiated. So it allows you to skip a meal and practice fasting. It allows you to feel full and incredible. Protein also preserves and builds lean muscle mass, which is crucial for keto or even outside of keto. Muscle mass is a longevity organ. Muscle is a longevity organ. It helps you become more insulin sensitive. So you want to hit your protein target. I tell my Keto Camp Academy students, aim to get 1 gram of protein per pound of your ideal body weight. So if a woman doing keto in my Keto Camp Academy weighs 190 pounds, but her goal weight, her ideal body weight is 135 pounds, then she would aim to get 135 grams of protein per day. And there are free apps out there to calculate your protein, to see how much you're getting. It takes all the guesswork out of it. I use and recommend Chronometer over at chronometer.com/KetoCamp. You can get that for free. If you have difficulty hitting that protein target, then the bare minimum should be at least 40 grams of protein at all of your keto meals. Animal protein is going to be far superior than plant-based protein. Animal-based protein is complete. It contains all of the essential amino acids. There are no anti-nutrients. They are bioavailable. So beef, chicken, poultry, eggs with the yolk, bison, make sure you're getting high quality animal products. The seventh mistake people make, this might be the most controversial and shocking mistake, but they do keto too long. Wow, that sounds like a crazy statement, as I am the Mr. Keto Camp and I love keto, but number one, I'm not dogmatic about keto. Number two, I look at keto as a tool in the shed, but not the only tool in the shed. And number three, I've seen after testing thousands of people going through keto that those who do it long term actually create some problems, and I'll go over why that is. But the key is metabolic flexibility. That essentially means, and I have coined the term metabolic freedom, which is a brand new book coming out in 2025 with Hay House called Metabolic Freedom. This means our metabolism could use whatever energy sources available for fuel and fat loss. Unfortunately, 93% of Americans are stuck burning sugar as their only fuel source. That's not good. That will lead to weight gain, weight loss resistance, insulin resistance, diabetes, and chronic disease. But then we have people in the keto space that also are what I call metabolic inflexible, in the sense of they're only burning fat. They've been doing keto for years. They forgot how to burn sugar. There's not one substrate that's bad for us unless we're stuck only burning that substrate, that available fuel source. So there are a couple things here that I've seen, and I've told you, thousands of people through keto, tested them, and there are a few things I've seen with long-term keto people. And I used to be one of those long-term keto people. This is a mistake I made. Now I'm probably 80%, 90% keto, and I flex out, and I teach this in my Keto Camp Academy. So here's the thing. When you are in ketosis for too long, you actually slow down fat loss. It actually creates a plateau and a stall. If you're watching and listening to this and you've been doing keto for 6 months, 9 months, you're probably experiencing that stall right now. Here's why. I want you to understand that the number one priority for the human body is survival. And if you only have one precious fuel source, fat, it makes sense that your body is going to want to slow down the burning of that fat to preserve its precious fuel source. Here's the analogy for this to make sense. Imagine you live in Alaska, middle of the woods, and you live in this cabin. And you know it's the summer, but you know in a few months it's going to be the winter and it's going to be freezing for a few months. So you start to store firewood to get ready for the cold winter months. Unfortunately, winter rolls around, but you've only stored about 15 logs of firewood. But you have a few months of cold temperature. What are you going to do to heat up that cabin? You're going to burn that firewood as slowly as possible to make sure you preserve your precious fuel supply. This is exactly what's happening when you're in ketosis too long. Your metabolism is going to slow down the burning of body fat to preserve your precious fuel supply. But when you incorporate a keto flex day, that's like your buddy coming over your cabin and saying, oh dude, you only have 15 logs of firewood? I have hundreds. Here, take 100 logs of firewood, burn that for energy, keep your cabin warm. Now what are you gonna do? You have 115 logs of firewood, you're gonna ramp up the production, you're gonna keep burning that firewood. A keto flex day, which is a feast day of healthy carbs to intentionally get you out of ketosis, is a reminder to your metabolism that you have a different fuel source for a day, and it actually kickstart fat burning, breaks stalls, and it helps to make hormonal conversions. Because one of the other issues I've seen with long-term ketosis is thyroid production slows down. Your reverse T3 goes up and free T3 goes down. That could be problematic. I've also seen electrolyte imbalances take place, issues there. And with men, I've seen testosterone decline with long-term ketosis. So I'm not a fan of long-term keto. I'm a fan of metabolic flexibility. Now let's get to the top questions I get asked when I lecture on this topic. First question is, Ben, do you offer coaching on keto, intermittent fasting, and fat loss? The answer is yes. I don't do any one-on-one coaching. You could book a one-on-one consultation with me. That's a few $1,000s, but I have a better option for you. I put together a program. It's the world's greatest fat loss, keto, fasting program in the world called the Keto Camp Academy. In the Keto Camp Academy, we have a 45-day keto reset where we shift you into ketosis for 45 days, and then we practice keto flexing. Keto flexing will be different for men versus women and different goals that you have, but it's all built out in a step-by-step system with coaching, group coaching from me, and then one-on-one coaching from my coaches. So you can learn more about that over at 𝙎𝙬𝘽𝙎𝑃academy.com. I'll drop a link for it down below. Next question is, I've been doing keto for a long time, but I feel great. Should I continue or should I break it? There are always exceptions here. If you feel great and you've been doing keto for 6 months, 12 months, or even longer, and all of your lab work looks good and you're just crushing it, then maybe you keep doing it. If you feel great, who am I to say to break that? But there is going to be a time and place where you're gonna wanna break it eventually. But I always tell people, if you feel great, you look great, your lab work looks great, then just keep doing what you're doing. Next question is this: besides the scale, how can I track my progress on keto? The scale is one thing, but it's not going to give you the best data. There are other metrics that I outline in my Keto Camp Academy called non-scale victories. This is how your clothes fit, your energy levels, your digestion, body fat percentage, your skin complexion. These are things you want to pay attention to as well. And then tracking your glucose and ketones are also important. We teach how to do this in the academy, but you want to get your blood glucose and blood ketones. We use a machine called Keto Mojo. You can get it over at ketocampmachine.com. If your blood ketones are at 0.5 millimoles per liter or higher, you're in ketosis. And then we also want to look at your fasting glucose, your postprandial glucose, which are your blood sugars after eating. We want to make sure we're hitting an optimal state. For fasting glucose, between 60 and 90 milligrams per deciliters, it's considered optimal. For postprandial glucose, 2 hours after eating, it should be back to where it was before you started eating. So do those metrics, and then you could also get some blood work done. You could get your A1C done, which is the 3-month average of your blood sugars, get a fasting insulin done, get some inflammatory markers done like high sensitivity C-reactive protein, homocysteine. These are all their metrics to track your progress. And of course, how you feel is probably the most important thing here. The next question is, should women practice keto and fasting differently than men? The answer is 100% yes. Men do it differently than women, and women who are postmenopausal do it differently than women who have a menstrual cycle. So in my Keto Camp Academy 45-day reset, everybody does the 45-day reset, but then what happens after that, it's customized for the person. For example, we have protocols for how to keto flex if you're postmenopausal. We have protocols on how to keto flex if you are menstruating. We have protocols on how to keto flex if you're a male between the ages of 18 and 40. And then we have protocols on how to keto flex if you're a male 41 and higher. It needs to be different. For example, women who have a menstrual cycle have different fluctuations in their hormones week by week throughout a 28-day period. Their follicle stimulating hormone, their estrogen, their progesterone. So we customize keto and their fasting to work with their hormones, not against it. Men and postmenopausal women have more similar hormones, a 24-hour recycling pattern, so we go with their hormones as well. So yes, it needs to be customized. That's the value of getting into a program and learning how to do this the right way. The next question is, should diabetics practice keto flexing? Yes, but they do it differently. There are different ways to practice keto flexing. For a diabetic, I would say not to do a traditional keto flex, high carbohydrate, healthy carbohydrate day until we've reversed the diabetes. Instead, we want a high calorie day of bumping up the protein, bumping up the fat, and just bumping up the caloric intake to mix things up. So it can be done, it just needs to be done differently with the caloric surplus, not necessarily by increasing the carbs. The next question is, my cholesterol has gone up since following keto. Should I be concerned? I get this so often. Total cholesterol is absolutely meaningless. More people die with heart disease with normal to low cholesterol than high cholesterol. It's much more than just cholesterol we want to look at. And the reason why doctors think cholesterol is the cause of heart disease is because when they looked at studies on people who have had heart attacks and they did autopsies on these people, they see that these heart attack victims had a whole bunch of waxy substance built up in their arteries. In other words, a whole bunch of cholesterol built up in their arteries, and they came to the conclusion that this is what caused the heart attack. That's like saying every time there's a fire in my neighborhood, I drive by the building and there are firefighters at the scene of the crime. Every single time there are firefighters there, so they must have caused the fire. Well, the firefighters are there to put out the fire. The cholesterol is there to put out the fire, the inflammation. Cholesterol is vital for your brain, for your hormones. It's a band-aid for inflammation. It helps to tame inflammation. So instead of looking at just total cholesterol, look at total HDL. which is protective. You want that over 60. Look at your LDL particle sizes. Look at your triglycerides. You want that under 70. Look at your inflammatory markers, like I mentioned earlier, your fasting insulin, your blood sugar. You want to get the full picture. And in my Keto Camp Academy, we coach this to our students. Next question is the carnivore diet the same thing as the keto diet? There are a lot of similarities. When you do the carnivore diet, which is an all meat animal-based diet, essentially 0 carbs, you're in a state of ketosis. So it has that in common. But a keto diet, you have some vegetables, you have some carbohydrates, and you're still in ketosis. With a carnivore diet, you have no vegetables, you have essentially no carbs, and you're eating just animal protein. But you are in ketosis with carnivore. Carnivore is great. Part of the 4-pillar approach in my Keto Camp Academy is a variation of carnivore as well. Great to reset the gut, burn fat, accelerate fat loss, and turn on the brain. Next question is, when I practice intermittent fasting, I feel tired and hungry. Am I always going to feel this way? We want to get you more fat adapted before we open up the fasting window. If you're not feeling good during a fast, you're just not as fat adapted. So maybe you do keto for 2 weeks, having 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then start to practice with fasting. Keeping your electrolytes up help with fasting, but the more ketones we could get produced, the better you're gonna feel during the fast. We just gotta get you more fat adapted. So a little bit more keto before you do any more fasting. Next question is, which liquids can I have during my fast? Well, of course, water, electrolytes. Tea is safe. Coffee could be safe for some people, but for some people could break a fast. The best way to know is to test your blood glucose, it's a finger prick, test your blood glucose before you have the liquid, 45 minutes after the liquid. If you see your blood glucose go up 5 points or higher 45 minutes after the liquid, it's breaking some of the autophagy benefits, which is the cellular cleaning benefits. It's breaking a little bit of the fast. If you don't see that rise, you're good to go. It's different for everyone. You would have to test to know for sure. The next question is, what's the best fasting schedule for keto? The best fasting schedule is constantly changing up the fasting schedule. So in the Keto Camp Academy, I know I mentioned it several times, every week we have a new fasting schedule, but I'll give you an answer. I love an 18-6, where 18 hours out of a 24-hour period, you're in the fasted state, and then you have 6 hours to eat your keto meals. Most days it's good to do that. Then I like throwing in when you get more fat adapted and you build up the fasting muscle. I love throwing in a 24-hour water fast where you essentially just go breakfast to breakfast once a week. So if you're done eating, let's say Monday morning at 8 a.m., you would go until Tuesday morning at 8 a.m., 24 hours just having water during the fast. There are different ways to practice fasting. It works really well with keto, and I hope you don't make the same mistakes I did. I hope this was a valuable lesson for you. If you enjoyed this video, you're gonna love a recent video I just published on the easiest way to burn belly fat without having to do cardio. Check out this clip and I'll see you in that video. This protocol does not require you to count a single calorie, measure, weigh any food, or rely on willpower. In fact, these steps are really easy to follow. I've seen people lose over 30 pounds within 30 days by following these easy 5 steps.